Good morning. My name is Anna Liebisch, Vice President for Talent Development at the JAX USA Partnership. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Advanced Transportation and Logistics Workforce Briefing. Jacksonville is considered America's logistics center. As the westernmost city on the East Coast, Jacksonville offers companies same-day access to more than 94 million consumers. Jacksonville is named as the top U.S. logistics hub by Global Trade magazine. This industry is positioned to continue to grow, as is evidenced by the growth in e-commerce, which dominates the conversation when it comes to the buyer. The pandemic and subsequent lockdowns throughout the country have put e-commerce activities on the forefront. The Jacksonville region has continued to expand its critical role in this landscape. Over the past 5 years, JAX USA Partnership has been involved in the announcements of 13 e-commerce companies adding to the region. With a total investment of more than $3.3 billion in infrastructure and the addition of nearly 18,000 jobs at the time of the announcements. Leading companies like Amazon, Wayfair, and 1A Auto have added or expanded their operations in the region. These companies and others have found success due to the hub orientation, which gives e-commerce firms of all sizes and growth stages the ability to thrive easily and efficiently. E-commerce plays a significant role not only in today's consumer experience, but in the global economy, and the Jacksonville region is committed to growing that sector. We do this through world-class infrastructure, a business-friendly environment, and a skilled talent base. Today, we will be learning more from these very companies, as well as JAXPORT, which is vital to the industry's success in the region. I would like to first welcome Stephen Frankel, Director of Operations for E-commerce at Homewood's giant Wayfair, as our virtual host to share information on Wayfair's journey in our region.
Many small internet sites for different types of products, but all furniture. And then ultimately, and it was originally called CSN, which was just a combination of the initials for Nerj and Stephen, but ultimately started to merge that together into what is now Wayfair. And a lot of people often ask me, what is a Wayfair? Kind of amusing is that there is no such thing as a Wayfair, other than the company. Initially, when they did market analysis to try to figure out what the name should be, and they hired a bunch of folks to get together and do surveys and whatnot, the term way and fair just surveyed very, very well. The owners liked it, and it ultimately became the name of the company. So if anybody asks you what a Wayfair is, you can tell them it's just one thing, and that's the company that sells furniture online. So we currently, and this grows every year, but we currently offer 22 million different items, and which come from 16,000 vendors from around the world. We in 2014, just to give you a little bit idea on how fast the company has grown, in 2014 we hit $1 billion in revenue, and last year we hit 14 billion. So just over about a 6-year period of time, went from 1 billion to 14 billion in gross revenue. So started out, as I mentioned, just this internet sales, and what a lot of people don't realize is they think that we handled product for that entire time. It's really only been the last handful of years, really any significant amount, just the last 5 years, that we've actually had any contact with the product whatsoever. Originally, it was really just a drop ship company. So we were only really a tech company with an internet presence where you would go online and you'd order a rug or a sofa or whatnot, and that would come directly from the manufacturer. And it's still, and a good bit of what we still do is what we call drop ship business, but now we're much more involved in the actual logistics, transportation of it, and really from end to end. We're now involved in everything from consolidation in places like Asia to the overseas shipment, and all the way to final delivery to right to your doorstep. We currently have over 16,000 employees in Wayfair. So some of our principles, our motto is cost-effective, perfect orders at scale. Cost effective, obviously, no surprise there. It's a business, so we want to be cost efficient. Perfect orders is really where our focus is, and that's in a really strong relationship with our vendors, the top of the line customer service, and then how do we take care of our team and get customers really the right product at the right time, the time we promised, and what they looked for, and obviously not damaged. And so our pillars, if you will, are obviously safety is our foundation, but then really people oriented with our team, customer and supplier oriented, a high emphasis on quality, and then obviously to try to be cost effective. Our fulfillment centers, like we have here in Jacksonville, are located all over the country, as well as here in North America, as well as in Mississauga, Canada. And then out of North America, we have several sites in Europe. And so just made the list here. I won't read through them all, but really just different sizes in different locations to try to forward place our product, to limit the amount of transportation time and get customers what they're looking for in as rapid a time period as we can. So roles, a lot of folks ask, what are the different things I could do for Wayfair? And a lot of people think that Wayfair is just about the shipping part or the operations part, and really it's quite the opposite. It started out as a tech company, so the roles are infinite, as with a lot of large companies. So operations, obviously near and dear to my heart, but it's just really one aspect of the business. But there are roles in everything from engineering and talent. Jaslyn's on the call from our talent acquisition team, but IT, real estate, finance, almost anything that you can imagine, there are opportunities in one of those 16,000 roles in Wayfair. A little bit about this site, which I've been with the company almost since we broke ground on the site, so near and dear to my heart. And not without its challenges as we launched. We started building the building here, and what you see on the top right hand side there, just for reference, is a CAD drawing. Everything you see, the different colors at the top up here are different types of racking, and then what you see down here is our automated sorter, which sorts the product into different trailers to go out to different service jumps through FedEx or UPS, or down here in the bottom right hand side, our home delivery, which would be those larger items that we have to put in a box truck to go directly to your home. And down here at the bottom is just a picture of us during construction. So we started construction in 2018, and it was, if you spend any time in Jacksonville, you know that we can get some pretty wet seasons, and we were in one of those at the time. And so we did have some delays, nothing critical, but we did have some delays just in getting concrete poured and whatnot. And so that got moved back to January, and then we had some additional construction upgrades that we needed to do through the early part of 2020, and we ultimately launched the building almost just about a year ago. We're in the building the end of May, and sort of a ramped launch to get the different aspects of the building running. And so that pretty much went through the whole summer of last year. The type of products that we do through this building are type 2, 3, and 4. And Wayfair breaks its products down into 4 different groups. The one that we don't have, the one would be those what we call like bin type items. So that might be a fork or a knife or a plate, small items. 2 and 3 are still what we consider conveyable and can go through FedEx or UPS. And so we have those here. And the 4th type would be those items that have to be, manually delivered with a home delivery service. So that would be your couches, your full-size mattresses, everything from gazebos to hot tubs. So some very large items, and we do all that through the fulfillment center here in Jacksonville. Capital investment wise, from a storage standpoint, we have the capacity to store over 5 million cubic feet of product, and we just recently launched and are still in a little bit of test phase of that sorter that I mentioned at the bottom of the CAD drawing, which is about a $10 million sortation system. We're just a myriad of conveyors and diverts, and so we put the product on that comes out of the rack, and it will automatically read the labels on that product and then divert it into whatever lane or trailer that it needs to go into. Our plan for Jacksonville, as I mentioned, we already have over 300 team members on site. I anticipate that number to go well over 500 with just our Wayfair team members. A little bit of delay from COVID, which I'll talk to you about in a little bit, but we anticipate in the next 2 to 3 years to almost double that number. And in addition to just our Wayfarian team members here on site, we have sanitation and yard jockeys, security, and our home delivery, and as well as support for the Jacksonville community and economics as a whole. We utilize a ton of offsite vendors, as well as the transportation network here, with over half of our product coming through JAXPORT and a good portion of our domestic coming through local carriers. As I mentioned, one of the more complex buildings in the network doing the mid to large items. We also have a home delivery right here in our building. Sometimes they're off-site facilities. We have a middle mile, so we may get product from one site to ship to another site to ultimately get to where it needs to go, and then returns as well. A little bit about our culture. I love our culture, and this is, we try to encourage a culture of fun. We try to embrace the fact that we're from Jacksonville. And when we ask everybody, hey, what's so great about Jacksonville? Everybody talks about our great military presence, all our bridges and our beaches. And so we wanted to embody that in a big mural on our wall. And a lot of what we've done has been sort of a beach or tropical type theme. We have, on the next one, you can see top right-hand corner, we have different tiki huts for team members to hang out in, ping pong, surfboards hanging all over the place, and a lot of fun things we do. You see in other pictures here, drawings and raffles and competitions and things like that. So really try to promote just a real fun culture for the team. In the age of COVID, one of the things I've been very proud of with Wayfair really has just been how they've handled COVID. Everything from pay premiums, emergency paid time off to help when folks need to be off so they didn't have to use their PTO, their vacation time, social distancing and masks and things that you would normally see. But then also we've actually gone to weekly COVID testing here. So everybody on this site gets tested weekly. We have non-overlapping shifts, and we try to quarantine as much as we can any issues that we do see. Won't get into too much of the details here, but why did we land in Jacksonville? We looked at a lot of different states. The port was a big part of it. A positive outlook on labor here in Jacksonville, and then just a lot of the help that we got from the city. So it's, to be honest with you, so far so good. It's been great here in Jacksonville. Any questions for me about Wayfair?
Well, Stephen, I know everybody wants to know, how soon can they go over to the facility and start purchasing things right here in Jacksonville?
So we unfortunately do not have a store here in Jacksonville yet. We were actually slated to when we first were going to open. It was part of our original plans. And quite frankly, the outlook on the business that we had here in Jacksonville and what we could put through Jacksonville made it so that we didn't have room for that anymore. So unfortunately, as of right now, and I always hope that we still get another site here, and we hopefully down the road we do that. But as of right now, unfortunately, you still have to log in and go online.
Well, I'm sure many of us who are on the webinar are consumers of your Wayfair products. So, and it's wonderful to have you here in the Jacksonville region. And thank you for sharing kind of your journey and story of how you guys came to be part of our community. We're so happy to have you here.
Yep, we're glad to be here. Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Robert Peak, the Director and General Manager of Sales and Marketing at JAXPORT. As you heard, JAXPORT is extremely important to our transportation and logistics industry and our e-commerce industry in particular. So Robert, let's turn it over to you for an update.
All right, I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to share my screen here. I got some slides to share with you, and see if that goes to full screen here in just a second, which it should. Let's see here. If we'll do that. There we go. And we'll move you guys over here. How's that? So I appreciate it very much. So I was asked to speak today briefly about the impact of e-commerce on JAXPORT. And I think to best do that, I want to share two logistics trends cycles that are colliding at the same time, locally, nationally, internationally, and explain how those trends are helping to actually grow business, not only at the port, but I think more generally in Northeast Florida. And the center of that collision really is e-commerce. So I kind of want to walk you through our thinking, and it's going to tie back to workforce really in Northeast Florida. So if you follow the bouncing ball with me, so the first trend really started a number of years ago, quite a few years ago, and it continues to this day. And it's something that our friends at Amazon and Wayfair both have contributed to in a very positive way, and I think benefit from. And it's this buildup of online shopping as these e-retailers fulfill these orders from consumers. And if you can see it as a trend line over a number of years, the percentage of online orders in retail shifting to online from people shopping in brick and mortar. And that was a pretty steady increase. And then last year when COVID hit in 2020, it really super accelerated that trend, because think about what all of us did. We hunkered down, and many of us stopped going to retail stores in person, and we accelerated the amount of ordering we were doing online. And others of us stopped traveling and spending money on experiences like dining out or traveling or vacations, and we redirected a lot of that spending to online orders. So we had this phenomenal bump in retail e-commerce last year. The number that I've seen is that overall nationally, retail e-commerce grew by 44% last year in 2020. Well, we know that some e-retailers, their individual growth was twice or three times that. So, and we know that that this trend for online ordering, e-commerce, and fulfillment online, while it might slow from what it was in terms of the growth rate from COVID, it's not going back to what it was. The genie's out of the bottle, and this is how people are going to shop. Well, just from a port perspective, it's put a lot of stress on shipping lines that need to bring these goods in from overseas, because there's so many goods being ordered that these ships are now full. It's hard for some of these companies to get all the containers and all the space on the ships they need to come to bring it into the United States. And so in some ways that's good for business, because it means there's a tremendous demand, but in some ways that the demand's outstripping the supply of the vessels that can actually come into the United States. And at some point that will balance out. But right now there's a great stress on the shipping lines. But as Stephen mentioned, that Wayfair is a great example, Amazon's another great example, that they are opening these fulfillment centers, and in some cases direct distribution centers, into large population centers like Jacksonville, because they need to fulfill these orders in 2 days or 1 day or same day or in just a few days. And so what do they need? They need to be near large population centers. Florida is now the third most populous state in the United States, so that sets up very well. Jacksonville is a large population center. We have the port. We have a transportation infrastructure here. I know workforce is tight in a lot of places, but Jacksonville has a reputation for a very good workforce. So these are all elements that play into us seeing companies want to locate their distribution centers and fulfillment centers in Northeast Florida. And so that first trend is really this growth of online e-commerce. And then the second trend also started a number of years ago, and it has to do where goods are made or where they are purchased. That is where they're sourced. And if you look at this map, every dot on this map shows you where Jacksonville has ships that go directly between our port and ports in these cities here. Now, not all of these are retail goods. Some of these dots represent manufactured goods for things like parts or vehicles or something different. But it shows you really kind of the global trend and just the global supply chain, and the fact that Jacksonville's really tapped into it. Now, almost all these countries you see, they either purchase or produce or do both. But if you look at that big yellow X, that's China. And what's remarkable is that there's something like 198 countries in the world, one or two fewer or more than that, depending upon what source you use. But China accounts for almost 30% of all manufactured goods in the world. So, and the other 197 countries do the other 70%. So there's this tremendous concentration of production of manufactured goods in China. It's called the world's factory for a reason. But the trend that's been taking place over a number of years has been a lot of companies have kind of scratched their chin and said, we're nervous that we have too much manufacturing located in one place, just in China, and that we're sourcing on almost all our material or all our material in one place in China. And so it's caused a lot of companies and manufacturers to think about, do we need to spread our eggs into more baskets? And that is move some manufacturing out of China into other countries, so we're not so heavily leveraged in one. And that trend has been happening a little bit. So some production has been moving to places like Southeast Asia. Vietnam has been a big benefactor of this. We're seeing production in places like Malaysia, Indonesia, India, not at huge scale, but some moving. And so you're seeing this production moving to Southeast Asia and not just in China. Well, from a port perspective, what that's doing is that production moves to Southeast Asia. It's really making moving ships through the Suez Canal being more efficient than moving them all the way across the Pacific through the Panama Canal. And they can move to the Mediterranean Sea across the Atlantic Ocean straight to the East Coast to ports like Jacksonville. So this trend has been going on for a while. And then in the last couple of years, there were two shocks to the system. And the first was about 2 years ago, the US federal government imposed large tariffs, these new import taxes really, on a lot of goods that were coming out of China. In some cases, a 25% tariff on an item coming out of China. And so these companies were all of a sudden faced very quickly with this massive increase in the cost of an item coming out of China in the form of these tariffs. And then last year in 2020, the other shock was COVID really began in China, and China was the first place to really shut down in earnest. So they shut down a lot of these factories, and the production just dried up for a lot of these goods and for weeks. And so you had companies thinking, my goodness, we've been thinking for a while about maybe moving some of our sourcing, our production out of China. And then we get hit with these huge tariffs, and now the production is shut down. And it really kind of hammered home the desire for some companies to see manufacturing move, or some manufacturing move out of China. And particularly the US government became very alarmed, and some state governments here became alarmed because a lot of what the medical devices and the personal protection equipment that we needed was coming out of China. And the Chinese government and in some cases were a little slow to fulfill orders. And so the US government said, my goodness, we've got this heavy reliance on things like face masks and ventilators and pharmaceuticals and the ingredients that go into pharmaceuticals all coming out of China. We really should bring that back home. We should really bring that production back to the United States or someplace back to the US system. So all this was has been kind of churning. And last year, the US Chamber of Commerce did a survey of 200 companies US companies that do business in China. And 40% of those companies surveyed last year said they're either considering relocating or they've already relocated manufacturing outside of China. And having said that, only 6% of those same companies said, well, the United States will be their new hub. So it's an indication that as these companies want to move production out of China, they're not all rushing back to the United States. They're bringing it to places like Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, Mexico, other places, but outside of China. And so the potential outcome of that is you're going to see some production manufacturing return to the United States. We don't know that there's going to be a lot, but there'll be some high profile ones. Some companies, they'll say, I'm definitely going to come back to the United States. You have some Chinese companies say, we'll do manufacturing in the United States to avoid the tariffs. And that presents opportunities for communities like Northeast Florida to bring that manufacturing directly to Jacksonville and surrounding area and create jobs for the community. At the same time, you have companies want to do what they call a China plus one or China plus two strategy. And that is, well, we're still going to bring a lot of these goods in from China, but we're going to try to find another country or two that we can actually source from as well. So we're not 100% in China. But either way you slice it, China and Southeast Asia are going to remain major players in manufacturing and production of all manner of goods. They're just so large. There's so much labor there. There's so much workforce there. There's so many factories set up. The supply chains are set up that shift is going to be probably not as dramatic as maybe some people had thought it might be. So how does that tie back into opportunities for Northeast Florida and relate to workforce? Well, the first I mentioned, if manufacturing is going to come back to the United States, why not come back to Northeast Florida? particularly for things like the production of personal protection equipment. A lot of the same elements that Stephen talked about that attracts retailers to an area are the same things that attract manufacturers. They need a strong workforce. They need a transportation network. They need a deep water port to import raw materials and maybe export finished product. They need a lot of those same elements, and we have them in Northeast Florida. And so if manufacturing is going to shift back to the United States, I think Northeast Florida in a lot of cases has an argument to be made why it could be brought back here. Some of that manufacturing, if it doesn't come back directly to the United States mainland, could move back to the Americas, could move to someplace like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has a tremendous history of being an excellent manufacturer for pharmaceuticals and medical devices. And if we want to bring this manufacturing back to the U.S. system, it could come back to Puerto Rico. Well, how does Jacksonville benefit from that? We are the number one port in the United States for trade with Puerto Rico. 85 to 90% of everything made in Puerto Rico that gets shipped comes through Jacksonville. That's a lot of jobs that are created directly at the port. And then, and we also, for example, we just announced a new vessel service. We have new ships coming directly from Mexico into Jacksonville now. And then I think we're going to continue to see more import distribution centers and fulfillment centers come to Northeast Florida. So the companies on your great panel like Amazon and Wayfair and 1A Auto, along with these other, Industry West, Article, Ulta Beauty, Crazy Art, they've all opened new distribution or fulfillment centers in Northeast Florida just in the last few years. They're taking advantage of some of those same, transportation, logistics, port, workforce needs that we know all these companies need. And there's a spin-off impact of this, a very positive one. And that is when companies like Wayfair and Amazon and 1A Auto come to a community like Jacksonville, it attracts the attention of a lot of large shipping lines. Those large shipping lines say, hey, though, we might have an opportunity to help, fulfill the shipping needs of some of these companies. So we're going to bring ships to Jacksonville. Well, when that happens, large manufacturers, or I say large, but small, mid-sized, and large manufacturers who are thinking about opening up a factory or facility, they say, we need those ships if we're going to locate in a community, we need to make sure they have a port with ships. And those ships are already here. Now they're here for these retailers, but we need to use those ships as well to bring in raw materials or export a finished product. So if we're looking at putting a factory or manufacturing facility in Northeast Florida, the fact that you have these vessels that are coming in and out, carrying goods for these guys, that helps those manufacturers in their site location. And it helps Jacksonville make an argument about why those manufacturers should be here. And right now, space is very tight on those ships. There's not a lot of space for everybody on them. But again, that's a short-term problem. Eventually, that'll sort itself out. So JAXPORT, weekly, if not every other day, we talk to JAX USA and the JAX Chamber about all three of these opportunities, about attracting manufacturing to Northeast Florida, all sorts of manufacturing, including personal protection equipment. We talk about the importance of importing from our America's trading partners. And we talk to JAX USA Partnership about attracting additional import distribution centers and fulfillment centers, not only because of the direct jobs that those fulfillment centers create, but because of how they help us attract vessel service that in turn attracts more manufacturing, which might not have anything directly to do with these retailers, but by virtue of them being here, they've indirectly helped grow the port and grow other business in Jacksonville. So when you have facilities like Amazon, 1A Auto, and Wayfair, they benefit your community way beyond just the direct employment. They are helping to build a business case for other manufacturing and other businesses to come to Jacksonville, which might not have anything to do with them directly. But these are three opportunities that what we're seeing from e-commerce and trends in the industry, these are things that we're trying to capitalize on. So Julie and Anna, kind of in a nutshell, that's what I have to offer. I meant to call up one more slide here, which had my contact information on it. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them now. And that's also my email and my phone number that you're welcome to call or email me anytime. And if I can answer any questions, I'll be glad to do it.